So I thought I'd take some time out of my current build to show you how to make a nickel metal battery pack. This one I've already made. This one is for my Taranis X7. The X7 doesn't come with a battery pack, so you can either buy one or you can make your own. They're easy enough to make, so it actually works out a bit cheaper if you make your own. The Taranis came with this battery tray and these batteries. So these are nickel metal batteries, and that's what I'm going to be making the new pack out of. So the disadvantage of using the battery tray is it's quite easy for a battery to pop out of one of these, and then you'll lose power to your transmitter, and probably whatever model you're currently flying is going to get damaged. Whereas using a pack, they're all secure in there and they're not about to fall apart. So they're pretty simple to use. What we're going to use is these 1800 milliamp batteries, and pretty much what you want to do is flip every second one around. This just makes it easier in your head. And what we're going to do is we're just going to solder, well, end to end. So you pick a point to say is your positive end, so it's either going to be this end or this end is your positive, and you just want to have the path go through the batteries. So let's say this is your positive, the path will go through there, then you want to solder across there, come down here, solder across there, up there, solder across there, and zigzag your way down, and you'll end up with a negative at the end here, which will be your negative terminal on your battery. So these batteries are a bit difficult to solder to. So there's two things you want to do. Firstly, you get some sandpaper. This is just normal regular sandpaper. I've got no idea why it's white. And just sand off the end of your batteries. You don't need to do much, you just need to scuff it up. It might look like you're doing quite a bit of damage to the battery, but you're not. You want to sand the other end as well. You just want to scuff them up so they're not shiny. So that's them all sanded. So the other trick to this is that you need to have your soldering iron really hot. I found about 400 degrees is pretty good. What this lets you do is get the soldering iron in pretty quick and out pretty quick. You don't want to be putting too much heat into the batteries, or you're going to damage them. So I have made up some little tiny cables. I've already pre-cut these because save a little bit of time. And all I want to do first off is tin the little cables. Okay, now those are all tinned, we need to do the same thing to the batteries themselves. Now what I'm going to do is actually tin the bottom first, because last time I tinned the tops first and I found that it was very difficult to get them to stand up the other way, so I'm kind of hoping that this will make a bit of difference, but I don't know whether it will or not. So you want to soldering iron on there, get some heat into it. You notice that the solder at the moment, or the solder when I started, wasn't really flowing onto the battery. That's because it wasn't hot enough yet. That's okay. Get a fair whack of solder on there. Cover it well. I'm going to put that on there and start heating it up. And when I first put this in, it's just going to bead on the top. In fact, it's not even going to melt at the moment. There you go. It's just going to bead on the top. And then once the battery's actually gotten hot enough, it'll start flowing onto the battery. And then you just want to spread it around a bit. And this battery's not gotten so hot that you can't touch it, which is a pretty good sign that I'm not overheating it. If it starts to burn your fingers, you've probably damaged the battery. So I was only standing them up that way so that the solder would actually cool off and solidify. It didn't really matter that I bent them over. Yeah, so now they'll actually stand up this way. Just. Now we'll do the other ends. Right, so now we've got them soldered. We get the fun part of trying to get them to stand up the other way up. So what I'm probably going to end up using is some sort of clamp. So all we need to do is get this set up in a way that, oops, I could put two batteries next to each other, basically so that they're touching. What we want to do is start off with the negative. Whoops. As you can see, I'm going to need to hold the battery. And just melt the two bits of solder on the pre-tinned cable in the back of the battery together. And eventually it'll stick. So that's now not coming off of there. It's not a particularly great joint. Can always go back in and give it another whack. As you can see, those two are soldered together. It's not coming apart. Probably need to twist them just a little bit to get it good. That's not the best I've done, but it'll do. And now we do it another few times. So now what we're going to do, because soldering the other bits together is going to be next to impossible, get yourself some electrical tape. In this case I'm using white because why not? I'm just going to match the other one. You want to give yourself a decent amount. I found my Stanley knife. I found the easiest way. Lay it down sticky side up. I'm going to put one pair like that. Oops. One pair like that. One pair like that. So you want to make sure, bring it into shot a bit better, you want to make sure it goes positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. You don't want the two positives next to each other because we're basically going to solder onto the bottom end exactly what we've just done on the top end. So your electrical tape will hold them together. What I've also found is a second set of tape around the other end. It's also handy. Then, just lean them against something to stand them up. So what we're going to do now, instead of, obviously we don't want to be soldering those two, so we're going to solder those two there and those two there, and that'll make a circuit going through the whole set of batteries, with that end then being the negative end of the set and that end then being the positive end. And this will basically make your pack. Oh well, it's on. That'll do. The only other thing we need to do now is solder on a positive and a negative lead. Now you want to get this done before you start taping it up, because otherwise you'll never get to the terminals. What I've been doing is I've got some silicon wire here. Just cut off far more than you think you're going to need. So that will be my positive. This stuff's fairly cheap anyway, so it's not a big deal. that'll be my negative. So again, we want to tin this wire. And you want both of the cables to come out the same side of the pack. So what I normally do is with the negative cable is run it down the side of the pack. Like that. Positive, I want to run out that side. Like that. So that's all the soldering I'm going to do. So I'll turn off my soldering iron. And what this means is that when we take the pack together, the positive and negative leads are going to be coming off the same end. So don't need that anymore. So pretty much now what we're going to do is put some stress relief on the solder and a bit of protection, because you obviously don't want it to be shorting. So I just get 2 bits of tape. This isn't going to be the only protection that I give it. It's always good. Oops, I'll do the bottom bit first. Just put it on like that. With the top, just want to keep that in like that, so it comes out the same. And what I've been doing with the other pack is actually pushing them both down a little bit so that they come out not straight across the top. This means if they get pulled, they'll be pulling on the tape there, not straight off the terminals. And now we tape it up. So I want to get nice long. I'm running out of electrical tape. Nice long bit of electrical tape. So that'll give the terminals a little bit of stress relief. We want to go back round. This time I'm going to go underneath. And realistically that will probably do, because that's not going to be how we end up. Alright, so the next trick is to get some heat shrink. Now, sticking with my white theme, I have some white heat shrink. This is quite big heat shrink. You can get it off of eBay. This was 20mm diameter or 40mm radius. Honestly, this is about the thinnest that you want to get your hands on. I would have probably gone for 42 or 44. You'll see why in a little bit. So what we want to do is cut this just a little bit longer than the pack. You end up getting this in metre plus lengths for not a lot of money. So you'll only ever buy the one. And then what we want to do is feed the pack into the heat shrink. Now, like I said, this one only just fits. Heat shrink being heat shrink, it will shrink and conform to the size of the pack, so it doesn't need to be this tight for it to still work. So we want to get it out about there. Get it in about the middle. Right, so the next thing we need to do is zap it with a hot air gun. Right, cools off pretty quick. So this is shrunk down, sealed the ends in. This will obviously stop your pack falling apart, actually makes it kind of rigid, which is good. So the only thing left to do now is to put the terminal on the ends. Now this is clearly far longer than I wanted. So what we're going to do is measure to about where we want it. We'll try and make it the same as the other pack, give or take, although the other pack is also quite long. Approximately there. You can do this to whatever size you want. You can have them short, you can have them long, whatever. It gives me a nice bit of cable to play with later on. Now you can use whatever connector you want. In my case I'm using a JST connector. These are the little red ones. But if you want to use something else, you're building the pack, so you can use what you want. Now for these little JST connectors, you normally get a crimper, but I don't have one. So what I've been using, and this is going to be lots of fun to do on camera, is pliers. Okay, so it's much easier to do when I'm holding it closer in. But essentially what you do is, there's two sets of tabs. The first set, you just grab one with the pliers, squeeze it and crimp it down, and then get the other one, roll it across. So I can show on this one, you do it with the cable side first, and then the outside. You just kind of get one of them, squish it in like that. And then once that's done, get the other one and roll that one over. Roll that over and squish it in. I made a bit of a mess of that, but it's close enough. And that will hold in there nice and tight, which is what we want. So the only other real trick with this is just don't cut both the cables at the same time. So we know how far we want this one. We want it to be about that long. So I can cut it to length. That's fine. But you just don't want them touching, making it short. It's not so much a problem with the nickel metal packs, but if you were doing this with the LiPo, you'd probably end up blowing the thing up. The only other trick is I've got to make sure I get this the right way around. So you want to make sure the polarity's right. There's actually little markers on the JST when you've got a 1 and a 2, and I think the positive goes into the 2 in most cases. Yeah, it's the 2 on that one. So it goes that way up. As long as all your batteries are the same way round, it actually doesn't make much difference at all. Before doing this one with the first battery, I checked with a couple of purchased ones and they were that way around, so you just get something and poke it in, and you hear it go click. That's it, it's not coming out of there. So now you can safely strip the second one and do the same thing with that. Okay, so now just to make it look good, give it a little twist. Just hides any mistakes you've made with the cable lengths. Now the moment of truth, if you have a multimeter and you haven't gotten it caught behind your desk, which I seem to have done for some reason, there we go. All we want to do is check the negative and the positive, make sure it's reading a positive value, which it is, 7.74, and that's it, job done. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you've got any ideas for any other videos, please put them in the comments. If not, look forward to my SCX 220 build. Thanks very much.